The NDP do not listen to their constituents. The liberals do not listen to their constituents. Why? Because that's what autocrats do. Autocrats are centralized at the top, and there's what, 3 or 4 people that probably run the show, and they could care less what their base are saying.
Many of you know that our journey with Northern Perspective began in January 2023. Throughout our time on YouTube, we've often spoken about the amazing people we've met along the way, and today's guest is no exception. He was introduced to us by Clyde, who many of you know. You know this gentleman as Vesper, but to us, he's Elijah, the person who approached us 9 months after we started, simply because he believed in what we were doing and wanted to help add professionalism and polish to our show. Despite having a successful career working with big name brands, Elijah insisted on charging us nothing for his expertise. He started as our consultant and designer, but quickly became a close friend. So, without further ado, welcome back to the show.
Welcome to the show,
hey guys. Hey Ryan. Hey Tanya. How you guys doing? Nice to see you.
Good. Nice to see you all dressed up.
This is what I normally do. This is when I'm either out with my clients or if I'm doing my meetings. This is typically the kind of stuff that I have to wear. I dress like a schlep usually just for X, but when it's my real life,
just for us,
I have
right?
to. Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much. You know. Thank you for having me on, by the way.
It's interesting, even in the intro where we said we know you as Elijah for the longest time. I don't think we knew your first name.
I think we still call you Vesper every now and then.
And
a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
And you only knew us as Cypher and Fox for the longest time until I think it was in March or April or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was actually cool, right? Because the dynamic between the names, they're all like matrixy, right? Like if we were us three in the Matrix, we'd all have like our avatars, and I love that.
I'd have more hair.
I saw Cypher. Yeah, it's honestly, it doesn't matter about the hair. What got my attention was that you like were either on LSD or in the Matrix when I saw those puppets the first time. That's when I was like, okay, they're on LSD. And then
you're talking about the originals, right? Like the ones that moved, right? You're talking about this. Yeah.
But then when you switch to the pictures, then I was like, this is some Matrix stuff. Now I'm like, okay, I'm liking it. Cypher and Fox, you know.
Yeah, because I think we switched to the stills in maybe August.
Yeah, I was going to say it was sometime in the summer, because when we met Pierre in July, we were still using the ridiculous puppets. And then not long after is when we switched to the still images.
And then, I got a call from Clyde saying, hey, there's this guy I know. He is telling me that you have to talk to him. He wants to talk to you. He wants to help you. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, it's this guy. He's a designer and he's really good. I said, sure, we'll talk to anybody. And so I'd already committed that we were going to listen, but I think you still thought you had to plead your case. So when we actually spoke, you spent the first 5 minutes trying to convince us, and we're like, sure, that's fine.
Well, you're completely right. I think, I don't know, what were you at in terms of growth at that point? I think you were 30,000 followers.
20,000, 25,000 maybe, because we hit 35 around Christmas. Yeah.
So I've been following you for at least 6 months privately and listening to you, and I was just blown away by how much you guys had to say and how clear and non-sensational, non-tabloidish, non-any of that. Now, I've helped people promote, being somebody that's in marketing, but it was refreshing to hear somebody just break things down clearly, and I felt like your brand needed to be elevated. Now, yes, I typically work with high-end brands, and I've been doing this now for many years. The reason why I came in and did not want to charge anything was honestly because I felt like we are all in this together as Canadians. What we've had to endure, money cannot be always the issue. I've done pro bono work before for other organizations that I believe in. I believe in you too. Notice I didn't say I believed. I believe in you two. I believe then, I believe now. And I put my best foot forward, brought in almost 20 years of experience, leveraged a lot of other people that are across North America to get their input on what I was putting together for you. And I think when I reached out to Ryan the first time, Cypher, it was all about, listen, I don't think you know me at all, and I was on Twitter at that time, but I wasn't really that big. But I tried to stay in the background because this wasn't about me. This wasn't about earning. This wasn't about I still make no money off of anything I do. I don't want to. I really do. In many ways, echo your sentiments. Like I believe in this country, and I believe in that citizens have to speak up and have to do something. And when I saw how funded the government of the day was with their campaigns and everything, this is before, by the way, the conservatives got like a boatload of money, okay, that they were being out marketed in every way. And my idea was, okay, I don't need to be in front, but I know people that are really good at what they do, and you are one of them. There are multiple other people that I'm not going to name that I have worked with and I still work with behind the scenes to help elevate them, because what's my end? It's the same as your end. I want Canada to come back to a place of common sense. And so if it's going to cost me lots of money, so be it. I'd rather make a better place for my kids. And not everything needs to be a business arrangement. And that's why it didn't cost you anything, because you are down to earth. You are honest. You've been great friends this entire ride. And I put in a lot. But you know what? I mean, look at how many people now see and hear the truth being put out there. It was probably one of the smartest moves to reach out to Ryan and Tanya.
Well, and as most people will probably not guess, it hasn't been, we haven't seen eye to eye on every single issue, and that's something to understand. It was actually really hard for Tanya and I to let go of that original logo. Looking back, I would have slapped myself, but it was something that we had ran with, and it had become our brand in like 7 or 8 months, and it was something that we kind of unwittingly grew attached to.
I'll be honest, the first time that I saw our new logo, I hated it. And I said to Ryan, I don't know if this is just because I am not used to seeing it, if my brain is just like, ew, this is new, I don't like it. But I absolutely hated it. And you had told us, just trust me and let it grow on you. And we did, and we absolutely love it.
Well, and my comment to you was, I don't know if I love it, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. And it's because of all the depth that was in there. Because initially all I really saw was the round circle and the mountains, and that was it. But then, the more you look at it, you see the reflection on it, and you see
the
constellations, kind of Canada underneath.
Yeah.
And to me, like being an IT guy, I saw network and data points, so that really started to appeal to me. And I think what's really neat about that logo is it doesn't matter what background you come from, it will appeal to you in a different way. So there's a whole lot of science behind that logo.
And that's the thing. See, so the average person that reaches out to me, sometimes I'll work with people that are, they're not big organizations, but there's people that are really good people, and they'll come to me, and there is science to this. The reason why red, you would think that a channel that might criticize the Liberal government would pick a blue color, which would be the Conservative color. But no, the Liberals hijacked that color, and people have forgotten Canada is red. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important. The reason for the mountains, beyond the fact that we have mountainous regions out in the Yukon and many of the provinces in Alberta and Quebec even, okay, is that it evokes the sense of climbing. It's a journey. There's also a pinnacle that you can reach. The data points, you nailed it, Ryan. The idea is that every single Canadian is interconnected with every other Canadian across the country. There is depth and layers to branding and marketing. And I say this with respect to you, Tanya. I don't blame you. Almost every client that I meet when I first, whether it be a big corporation or even just a mom and pop shop, they always go, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. It doesn't pop for me. And I tell them it's not supposed to pop for you. It's supposed to be efficient, and it's gonna work given your demographic that and trends, because that's one of the things I specialize in is trends. And I also help some people revitalize their brands. So I don't blame you. And doing all the animations and the CGI and the logo and everything. Remember, I'm the guy that had it like in his head already. I don't How could you be blamed for not seeing what I was already thinking of? It took time over time, and you began to see the vision. And I think you guys were sold.
Yeah. Well, and we've embraced it to this point, right? So, and we're really grateful for all the work that you've done, and it's definitely added a layer of polish to the show. There were some other strategic moves in terms of communication that we relied upon you for. So everybody knows, for many of the early interviews, Elijah consulted with us on even the questions and how to structure them and what to ask and when to ask them. So we were constantly going back and forth about that, many revisions. And I think, honestly, where you look at it, I think the results speak for themselves. Yes, Northern Perspective is Tanya and I, but it's also, if it's not polished, if it's not
I'd like
branded,
to say, I think we just need to say I'm a supplement. I
Yeah,
am not. I am
100%.
not the ingredient. I was a supplement to help polish the brand because
You're the
I
seasoning to the
wanted,
steak.
basically. And that's all I. And no, you guys had seasoning. I think it's just you needed maybe an entree or something.
100%.
And I wanted every party, and I'm going to say this very clearly, including the Conservative Party, to know that there's a platform here that will call them out, and that they will be so polished, and everything in their strategy, everything in the way that they approach things, in a mature, common sense, tangible, non-sensational way, that if any party even attempts to do anything, whether it be good or bad, it's going to get called out, and it's going to get called out without any bias. And I back people like that. I've called out my party. You guys know I'm a part of the CPC. I'm a constituent, but I've called them out on Twitter. I like people that are not partisan. They're bipartisan. Period. It just so happens that right now the Conservatives are making the most sense. Can that change? Yes. But what's good is you're now on the map because of this polish. And let's be honest, it's not all of it because of what I did. The content, I would not have ever reached out to you if the content was not gold to me. And
Right.
so to me, that's the meat. All you needed was a pretty dress, and that's it. You guys had the figure. You just needed the dress, and that's it.
Well, anyway, let's get into the. We've talked about science. We've talked about the design itself. Let's get away from Northern Perspectives. So, let's go in the Wayback Machine. What made you decide to want to be a designer in the first place?
Well, it's in my blood. I'm actually a seventh generation master jeweler. My family spans all the way back to Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, for almost a century and a half. Like I could track my lineage for a century and a half. And they all were doing artisanship work, like filigree and old school stuff by hand. And that's what I was brought up in very young. I took liberal arts in Quebec, and you guys know Quebec for their artistic expression and so on and so forth. There's a lot of studios here and blah, blah, blah. But manufacturing and metallurgy was really where I learned. And I started at that time. I don't know if you guys know about AutoCAD and CAD designing and so on and so forth. So CAD started at that time to get into the jewelry space also. So I was doing AutoCAD designing for jewelry, but I felt restricted. And at a certain point, and I'd say this happened about 20 years ago, I felt like, because in college, I've won awards for sculpting, painting, pottery. I really did love working with my hands and building and making things. And I've sold quite a few things just for fun. I was making a lot of money in jewelry, but jewelry began to become a turnoff because it felt too restricted to just the corporate side of like just it's money, 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 gold, 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 diamonds, diamonds, diamonds. Now I know Tanya's probably like, yeah, that should have been so horrible for you, gold and diamonds. But you know, when you're in the back and you're the one smelting, bending, welding, iron, like you know, filing, cutting, and doing everything, and casting, and on and on and on, and then presenting a beautiful engagement ring, there's a reward to it, but there's really not a whole lot of expression, right? I mean, most of the people would come in and I want a Tiffany style ring, or I want this kind of ring, and I'm like, I want to go in, I want to go far, I want to take my art everywhere. And that night I sat down and as I've said before, as a Christian, I pray about everything. And I, it was in the middle of the night. It was about 3, 4 in the morning. I was distressed beyond belief about like, what do I do? And in the middle of the night, I looked up at the sky and I just like said, hey, God, you know, I don't know what to do at this point. And there was only one star that was like shining really bright, and all the lights in the neighborhood were down. So the only thing I could see was just like that one star glowing really bright. I don't know if it's because there was clouds, but I went back in and I saw that as like a guiding light. Does that make sense? Now that's where the name Vesper comes from, by the way. Because Vesper in its Greek form is Eos Phoros or Hespera, which is essentially the it's light, but it's the night light, if that makes any sense, right? So I saw that as a guiding light, and it sounded cool. So I said, you know what, we're gonna pick Vesper, and I operated under that name for multiple years. I've since branched off, working with a lot of my clients under another brand. And I'm only going to reveal that brand when I'm done with X. But I made a vow not to monetize anything I do. I got into graphic design. I already had a background in 3D. I was already very adept at sketching and concept sketching. It was really what was missing at this point was the technical savvy of software, and learning the software and mastering the software, things like Adobe, you know, a bunch of video programs, 3D applications. And then came in the consulting and the marketing. And by the way, I didn't learn this of myself. I had really great mentors. A lot of the people that I met along the way over a span of, I'd say, decade, were brutal, but they were honest. And I had to learn the hard way. I was under the tutelage of some really great people along my journey that expanded my mind about, like, for example, one of the big things, this is the only thing I'll leave here on this, is probably one of the best advertising / marketing studios in New York City. We're talking about a company that works with Fendi, Gucci, Prada, Lamborghini, big companies. The owner, I met him through somebody that knew me at Columbia University. I ended up being invited to give a talk on lighting in rendering for people that work in engineering or architectural engineering. And I remember him saying to me, he says, you have one mistake. He says, you still think your opinion matters. He says, your opinion does not matter. What matters is if this thing will work or not work. And you need to become completely distant from your opinion. Your opinion needs to be a technical analysis on everything that is demographically and evidentially screaming at you. So you may like this color, but everything in the trends, everything that you're seeing with the brand, everything in their messaging and their story is this color. You need to be able to resist the urge to inject yourself into the brand. You need to let the brand be its own personality. And so learning how to build efficiently, and learn how to communicate then with the clients, that because you'll get pushback. I mean, you guys were really nice. Tanya and you were really nice. You were not like real, like difficult, because I mean, I remember telling Ryan, I'm like, look, man, you're IT. I don't know the first thing about what you know. I would trust you if I hired you. Either
Oh, what
I
did I
hire
say?
you
You're
or
the doctor. I said, you're the doctor, and
that's
we're
what you
going to the
said.
doctor.
That's what you said. And so listen, the proof is in the pudding, right? The brand itself is an elevated brand. It's not tabloidish. It's not, childish. It's a very polished look. And given the content that you guys did, you didn't strike me as like a here today, gone tomorrow, kind of thing. Everything was original. You did your own work. And I felt like you did it and conducted yourselves in a very professional way. Yes, it was funny. Sometimes you guys had your anecdotes and so on and so forth, but everything was done originally and in a very mature way. And I felt like that's why your brand needed to be that. And, given the stuff that you were saying about the liberals, you would have thought I would have never picked red, hearkening to earlier on. But the more I listened to you, the more I heard Canada again, the Canada I grew up in. And I'm like, we need to reclaim that color back. And we need to do it in a way that just makes any other brand that any political party is trying to do. Like, I want them to know that they're going to now compete with people that brand very well, and they're going to be consistently updating their look, and they're going to keep growing by providing the right information, and they deserve the right platform and look to complement the work that they've done.
Well, and it resonated with us because I think even in our second iteration, we were starting to go down that path of embracing red because we had the red northern lights behind our stills. And yeah, we didn't want to align ourselves to a party because that wasn't the point. So when you ended up coming back with this, it that definitely resonated with us. We love the colors because it's Canada, and that was our pursuit. We wanted to bring back the country that had been, I will say, almost lost, because it's not lost yet because we can get it back, but it's been almost lost. So that really resonated.
Yeah, and I still remember I had high hopes. I told you guys, and you guys will say, I'm like, wait till you get to 100,000 before the end of the year when we do.
And I thought you were nuts.
I didn't believe you. No,
you didn't believe me. And look, a lot of channels that I do this with in the States, they all have the same thing. They don't believe me, but I work with them and I tell them, listen, this is what I need from you. Shut up and just do what I say. Now, you didn't shut up, but when I said aesthetically and communication wise, I said, trust me, because you did command a lot of my respect, even early on. Okay. Even with those images and everything, the content and everything it commanded respect from me. You knew a lot more than I did, both of you, on parliamentary procedure, on just typical things. And
I think we hit it off just in our friendship as well. We're all pretty nerdy. We all like Star Trek and Futurama, and that helps when you're able to build a personal relationship.
Well, I mean, Ryan is the only other person I know in Canada that can speak to me in fluid Temerian, and so if nobody knows what that is, no, like literally, me and Ryan talk, everybody, and like Tanya's just looking at us like, what are you saying? And this is the greatest thing, is that we could speak a Star Trek language, like that is literally all that. For it. Yeah, and it shows a different side of you that I love that people see also on the channel. That whole Randy thing that you keep posting, and there's a side of you that's jovial, and I like that. But for the most part, you conduct yourself professionally, and that's, I think, what has garnered the attention of so many MPs. And I wouldn't be shocked if in the new election you will not only be able to get conservatives back on your show, I suspect liberals and NDPers are going to probably want to get on your show too.
Yeah, and it's not from any lost effort in asking, but hopefully they will say yes after the election.
Well, I mean, desperate times require desperate measures, right? So when they get into desperate positions, people do desperate things, and they need a platform. And honestly, I really wish, if there is a liberal or NDPer that is listening, they would come on your show. They would be treated fairly, and the questions would be very honest. I believe that. And and I just wish that right now it wasn't so partisan in their approach. And it's really their comms directors, to be honest. I don't think the members themselves have a problem. I think their communications and strategy folks are too afraid that they would not be able to dodge a question properly. This is why Kamala Harris, for example, didn't go on Joe Rogan.
Well, and this is the irony, right? Yeah, and that's exactly it. if you want to convince voters, then you actually have to go to where the people are that you want to convince. You can't convince voters by standing within your own base. You're
No,
not going to increase your vote count by that.
No, and look, we're going to talk in a minute about like some topics on this politically from a marketing and strategy perspective, what's actually going on. But I wanted to let you kind of finish your thoughts, both of you, on this. But from my point of view, I really do hope that the parties, if you're listening, come on the show. And you know what? Answer the questions. Believe me, nothing will galvanize your base than when people hear you say what you have to say. Whatever it is, stand up and say it. Don't just, stand up in the House of Commons and say what everyone wants to hear. Say what you want to say. Some of the stuff that the NDP has said made sense. Some of the stuff that the Bloc has said has made sense. Some of the things that some liberals have said has made sense. Rarely, but it has made sense. And okay, you're not going to have the scandalous people coming on, but there are people that are moderates. There's some people that had really good points that are now building, they're criticizing their own party. Like, hey, this is not the Justin Trudeau party. This is the Liberal Party. Like, people like that should be able to come on and just express their point of view. But I suppose it's the comms, right? And it's their team of communication and PR that's not permitting them.
Well, and this is where politicians need to understand it's a new world in media, and the new world is that you cannot be afraid to put your beliefs out there to be questioned, because if you do that, you're not going to gain the confidence of the Canadian voter because of the lack of trust that Canadians have in their government.
Well, oh, sorry. I was going to say another thing is that liberals only going on liberal safe shows, for example, they're already preaching to the people who are going to be voting for them anyways. Liberals coming on a conservative friendly show, if they do it right, maybe they change some minds. I don't know, but it seems to me it's more advantageous.
They will.
Yeah, it's more advantageous to go on an opposing view show and make your point well, and hopefully get some more followers, or maybe even people who are just kind of interested in it, as opposed to going on to a show that everybody's already liberal and it'll make
echo chamber. They are literally the bane of our political geography in Canada right now.
On all sides.
Yeah, on all sides, conservatives included. But I will say this, that and we're going to get to this really quickly. We're going to address from a strategic issue what the conservatives have done right and what the other two major parties are doing wrong. But let me wrap up just my little story. I've been already offered. I don't tell people things. I stay in the background. I call myself Batman, not because I dress like Bruce Wayne or anything like that. I'm not Batman, but I like staying in the background because at the end of the day, not that I'm hiding, I'm not afraid. It's there's people that do their job really well. You guys do your job really well. I come as a compliment, and that's it. I don't need to do my own thing. This is not why I'm not going to have a YouTube channel about commentaries and stuff. This is not what I'm good at. I'm good in what I do. And if I ever do open a YouTube channel, it's going to be about what I do. It's not going to be about politics or any of that. So I think to wrap this up from my vantage point, I mean, I've had quite a few invites from people on X from parties asking me to join in and help them design this or design that or create this, and not just in Canada, internationally. And for the record, if the conservatives were to come to me, I would say no. If the liberals were to come to me, I would say no. You have your own teams. You don't need me. The reason I will back people like you up is because I want Canadians to have a voice. And I want the Canadians to be able to speak up, because I want governments to remember that we elect you. And so the louder Northern perspective and all the other channels that I've helped and am helping grow, their voice will start to outgrow even the voice of those in government and become very, very prominent. And that's what I want.
Well,
I
it forces them to finally listen.
That's it. So you put literally the cherry on the top. Perfect.
So let's move into. So you went on Twitter. You are on what many people know, a well-known crusade to rid the Canadian government of Justin Trudeau, and have used your designs on there. But just from let's move into the branding perspective. What are you seeing from the different parties? And like we've talked about it from the political strategy perspective, what are you seeing from just a branding and marketing design perspective?
Well, let's just talk about two parts. And I did this for you guys. You don't know that I did this, but I'm going to share into another screen. And I composed 3 critiques on the Liberals, 2 on the NDP, and 2 tweets just to qualify it. And it's not a perfect qualification, but I think these critiques are going to be appropriate. So let me just switch over to that and show you what I'm talking about. The first critique that I want to jump into is, let's talk the NDP real quick. Okay. So there's an inconsistent branding and messaging. They've always struggled, just looking at Jagmeet and everybody else that joins in, whether it be the president of the caucus or somebody, there always seems to be a shifting perspectives, right? Like, are we doing an election? Are we going to get centralized, what is it called? Universal pharmacare. And then this guy's like, no, we're only giving this. The messaging and the branding is very inconsistent, and it's not unified. And to many people, that can make them feel like that this party is scattered in its communication, and nothing evokes less confidence than when you hear one guy say, we're going left, and then the other guy saying, all right, everyone, go right. So when you start seeing this in a very subconscious and very conscious way, sometimes, if 2 different messages are being said, then that immediately creates issues for their voter base. I suspect the other one is also, no, that's the other one here. Let me go back. So here's another thing that's very important for the NDP. I'm keeping the best for last because I love going all over the Liberals. From the NDP, there's a strategic voter perception that's an issue here. Now, what does that mean? There's a perception among some voters that the NDP doesn't aim to win. So do you understand what that means? That's like, I'm going to the Olympics. I'm already evoking to my country, there's no way I'll make gold or silver. Okay, or even bronze, but I'm going to give it my best. And when you do that, but rather than like just like it says, but to influence policy, that's really what they're doing here. They're not trying to win; they're trying to influence policy through strategic voting. This might discourage their constituents because their constituents want them in power, but all you're really doing is you're trying to change policy. Look at what happened now with this whole thing that's happening in the House of Commons being locked down. How many of your policies are being enacted?
Well, and that's and the other point to that is that in one, and it goes back to the inconsistency as well. In one breath, Jagmeet Singh says, well, I'm going to be the next prime minister. And then the next breath, he says, well, we've used our power and we're going to continue to use our power, which is only on the policy influence. And so, yeah, as a voter, like, okay, so if you're not trying to win, why am I backing you to win?
But even more to that, if the Conservatives win a majority government next, which they're expected to do, the NDP is going to make themselves completely irrelevant because they can't even influence any policy.
No, they can't at all. In fact, listen, let me show you something. Here is a tweet. I don't know how well you could read it, but you might want to read it, Ryan or Tanya. But I was going to say Rania and Tyan. Ryan, you want to read this tweet? This was
sure.
Like all the way back to 2021.
Yeah, so this is after the 2021 election, so everybody can kind of understand. NDP Federal Council took the rebates from the local ridings and poured it all into Jagmeet Singh's image and campaign. We invested nothing in the ground.
Wow.
This is an NDPer. Do you see the problem here? Everything is superficial.
What's happening is that at the end of the election, the EDAs are given rebates, and the NDP party said, no, we're taking those rebates and we're going to invest them in the main party as opposed to allowing the EDAs to keep them. And the EDAs are where a lot of the work happens.
That's where the grassroots comes from.
Yeah, those are the folks that are influencing policy. Those are the folks that are out every day door knocking and calling constituents and asking for donations. So for them to take the money from the ground and bring it up to the top, I think that sends a message, and it's not a good one.
Well, and it's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be the other way around, where the main party helps out the EDAs. That's the way it's supposed to go.
Well, from a purely marketing and consulting, not design, forget design. This has nothing to do with design at this point. From a strategic point of view, you appear weak and you appear scattered and confused. And not only that, you appear defeated, right? And the base since 2021 has been acknowledging, because that was an NDPer that you just read. He said we. He didn't say they. He said we. We put everything into an image rather than into actual boots on the ground. And that's really the problem here, is that the NDP has become nothing more than, I'd say, I don't know, like a door wedge just to kind of keep the Liberals in. And now it's become clear to their base. But again, their base it's a lot more nefarious. There's other things that you have to calculate. But from strictly a voter perception point of view, we're talking about people that are begging for crumbs that are still supporting them. And that's not going to work for long, because the issue is not the pharmacare, the whatever. If affordability no longer becomes viable in Canada, then everything you're asking for doesn't matter. And so the perception will always come back to, you did not do your job, right? And
Pretty
so
much.
people are beginning to see this even within the NDP base. So let's skip to the Liberals, unless you have any other questions. I'm really keen to jump onto the Liberals and hear your thoughts too on some of this. Issue number 1. Can you read this? I'll leave it to Tanya to read these.
Nice and clear.
Ryan.
You want me to read this? Okay, so Liberal, over-reliance on traditional media. The Liberal Party has focused too heavily on mainstream media outlets, which might not reach a broad demographic, particularly younger voters who consume news via digital platforms.
Would you agree with this, both of you?
Oh, 100%.
That they've relied on MSM. They thought they were going to buy their way into people's brains, completely ignoring social media. And you could tell they're literally being, not just on X, on every social platform, they're being ratioed. And there's a reason for that.
And this is where Bill C-11 comes from, because all the young people are only on social media and they're not watching mainstream media. So what C-11 aimed to do is to force the mainstream media sources to the top of the content chain, so that when the young people are on social media and they go on YouTube, they go on Facebook, they go on these other platforms, what they're being presented with first is what the Liberals want them to see.
Well, and I think the Conservatives got on the social media game really early on, and they've done a pretty good job. I mean, most of the MPs, especially in the shadow cabinet, they all have YouTube channels. They all are very active on Twitter. They all are very active on Facebook. They go where the people are. The Liberals were too late to the game. Pierre Poilievre already had...
Right.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre had like this huge YouTube channel before Justin Trudeau even signed up.
You're going to see it in one of the other topics. Everything you've just said is completely 100% accurate. You should take over. You should do my job. You make a lot of money doing. You make a lot of money doing my job, Tanya. I don't know why you're doing this with Ryan. Just come do my job. You could make a whole lot more money. Second point, and I think you're going to see what I'm talking about. Go ahead. Since you're the prophet, go ahead, read it.
Inadequate use of data and analytics. The Liberals have been outspent and arguably outmaneuvered by digital advertising by parties like the Conservatives, indicating a possible underuse of data-driven marketing.
Well, and I would even say, I'd say most of the Liberals probably understand what's really going on there, but the top elites at the top of the Liberal Party are refusing to even acknowledge what those data points even are.
Yes. So this denialism happens in brands. What'll happen is you'll have some dinosaurs in a company, for example. they're diehard to the brand, or sometimes they're even the founders of this brand, right? Like, my granddaddy, he did this, we've held on to this for like 90 years. And I'm using, I don't know, a Southern accent because it's funny, but it's the idea is that it doesn't matter. Do you want the company to survive, or do you want to cling to an ideal that is no longer working? And unfortunately, they're too late to the game. It's too late to fix it. The social media landscape has been dominated by conservatives. There was a literal coup de grace that they did, which was very intelligent, was to blitz social media. There's a reason why Trump, in the way that he galvanized X at the time and sensationalized it. And look, there's a lot of stuff that I love Trump, but there's a lot of stuff that he says that is sometimes wacky, but it doesn't matter. There's a brilliance there. He knows the mind of those that perceive things on various levels of the IQ chart. He knows that if I keep staying in the minds of people and promote, because that's what he is. He's a promotional artist. If I keep promoting and promoting and promoting, yes, it should be that you're at least using things honestly, but it doesn't matter. There's a reason why the liberals under Trudeau, who had the younger vote, right? Young voters, lost them because they did not have the wherewithal, these dinosaurs at the top of the caucus of the liberals, to say, hey, maybe we need to get into the digital space more than in the mainstream media space. So they went after boomers, completely ignoring that everyone's jumping onto the internet. And that had I been in that meeting, I would have just told them, you guys have completely miscalculated this, and I'm not shocked.
But the interesting thing about our channel in particular is that the vast majority, I think it's 2/3 of our viewers are age 35 and older. Like, we get very few young people on Northern Perspective. So I think there is a market for, people who are middle-aged and older and want unbiased news that's not mainstream media.
But ironically, I think the reason for that is because this group of people has completely lost faith and lost trust in the mainstream media, so they've had to turn to the internet and social media to get a better understanding of what that picture actually is. So, ironically, the demographic of Canadians that have turned to social media, to the digital space, that are older, have only done that because of their lack of trust in the Liberal Party.
There's another quantifiable reason for this also that many people don't know in any kind of advertising and branding. Often the younger will introduce to the elder the newer trends. Mm-hmm. So it could be like a son buying his father his first iPad. It could be the daughter saying, hey, mom, you should use this new phone. It's a lot better than your flip phone because you can keep track of it. So there's this element of, it's a secondary consideration that the younger people in any industry, by the way, that is affordable, right? We're not talking about purchasing Porsches and stuff like that. That's for the elite. I'm talking about like regular people. Hey, Dad, I went to Best Buy. I found the perfect TV, or Alexa or anything, and they introduced their parents to the technology. And so a lot of these people that might have met you, some of them might have met you because they're just very intelligent and they know how to come to your channel, but a lot of them were probably also introduced because of their children. And that's a fascinating thing when you consider that there's a second tier level of consideration in your planning, that yes, if I don't get the young person will influence the older rather than the older influence the younger. So I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of your viewers probably came by themselves, but a lot of them probably were influenced to get on the internet, right? Remember when back in the day, like the Gen Xers were just starting to get on the internet and our parents had no idea how to even turn it on. And like we had to, I still remember teaching my mom how to use a CD. And so I think there's a big miscalculation from the liberals that the youngers are affecting the olders. The older, because parents love their kids, right? They don't want to lose their kids. They don't want to lose contact with their kids. And so they'll entertain what their kids bring them for Christmas. Oh, nice. I don't know how to use it. Maybe you'll teach me. And then guess what? They see Northern Perspective on there. They see other people on there. And okay, yeah, they might see CBC trying desperately and it's not working. And then they go on X. Holy cow. There's this thing called X. Who's X? And then they look at all these things and videos and everything becomes Instagram. And then next thing you know, they're not looking at mainstream media. They're not watching TV, Radio-Canada, CBC, CTV. They're glued to the internet at that point. So I think that's another thing. So unless you have anything else, I want to drop to the last point and then qualify it. I think it's probably going to be something that you're going to find interesting. Reactive rather than proactive communication. I don't know, Ryan, do you want to read this one?
Sure. Often the Liberal Party's communications have been reactive, responding to criticism or events rather than setting the agenda or leading the conversation. And this has been the main complaint of the Liberal caucus, which led a lot of them to actually rebel against Justin Trudeau, because they've been waiting for any type of messaging coming out from the Liberal Party, and they've been silent.
Now, why do you think that is? Why is this happening, that they're, in your estimation, because I mean, I watch you guys and I think you guys do good summations. Why are they opting for reactive rather than proactive communication?
Well, I think the main issue is because they have executed their platform up to now, and they've had essentially free reign to do it, and it hasn't worked. So, there's a reason why Canada is in the state that it is. And I think part of it is incompetence, and the other part is that I honestly don't think they know what to do next. You kind of saw that in the federal budget, and that's what the analysis was of the federal budget. It was just literally more of the same, and it was more, but to a higher extreme. And then even when you hear Trudeau's messaging, his messaging up to now is, well, you don't want to vote for the Conservatives because they're going to be, X, Y, and Z and bad for Canada. He's actually not telling Canadians, this is what I'm going to be doing after the next election. Here's my whole plan. They don't have a plan. So you can't be proactive when you have nothing to sell. There's nothing in the window. Everything that they've been doing up to now, that's it. That is the Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau.
And listen, from a marketing standpoint, I have a client that works directly in Florida with top brands like Audi, McLaren, Mercedes, and these are the kind of people that like Jay Leno will visit to buy his vintage vehicles. The problem is when they came to me and two other consultants about helping them create a brand and create a company or revitalize an old company that's like 7 decades old. The problem is that they were reacting to the market rather than leading. They were, by every right, the leaders in their industry. I'd say even across the United States, they are top dog as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not saying that because they're maybe watching this. They have some of the most rarest vehicles, and they have a museum of ancient vehicles. Like, that's how big these guys are. But they started wanting to copy other brands, and I told them this will be perceived as a weak move by you because it means that you do not lead. You are reacting to the industry rather than leading by example. So let's take that and conform it to now on something I've been watching from you guys reporting, is how the documents are being requested from the Liberals. And you guys have been talking about all they have to do is just hand over the documents, and that would engender the confidence of a leader. But instead, what you are doing is you are reacting to a move. That would be akin to me and you guys playing chess. I make a move, it shakes you, and you're trying to play out the clock because you're worried any move you make right now, and that gives a sense of weakness.
This is why Pierre is not engaging on this point of of getting the security clearance. He's engaged on it
Yeah.
like once or twice, but if he plays that game, he is now reacting rather than being proactive in his communication. And we saw that was the big problem of John Rustad in the BC election. He fell into that defensive mode, and that probably cost him the election.
You know, in many ways, and I say this with compliment, and I'm not shilling for Pierre, but with compliment, I would bet on Pierre on a chess game against Trudeau 10 times out of 10. And the reason why is because when you play chess, you have to be able to feign feign any kind of reaction. We call it a poker face, essentially, right? There are poker moves and there are poker faces. And the Liberals seem to react to everything on a poker game like showing their hand without showing their hand, and they're not demonstrating what leaders do. Leaders are unswayed, and not everything that needs to be said needs to be retorted to. The idea that Trudeau would stand up ad nauseum and many of his caucus members get up and repeat the same line over and over and over demonstrates that you do not have the capacity to properly answer, and it's disingenuous. Only the people that are completely captured in a liberal echo chamber would continue to listen to this. But I suspect this is why their votes have completely gone down. Many moderate liberals who are very good, critical thinking people are not standing up anymore for rhetoric that is a losing rhetoric, I think.
Yeah,
and
they've tuned out.
They've completely tuned out, and this is where I'll just share the liberal picture. I don't know if Tanya wants to read this, but look at this. This was just a few days ago.
Yeah, it says if we are speaking LPC or Liberal Party of Canada, they really need to be on all platforms in a far more effective way. They need to use influencers better as well. They need to stop relying on mainstream media to get on podcasts, get on social media that still exists, and use digital in a general way.
Imagine the beauty in that, like, their own constituents are telling them what's wrong. And what have you guys been saying over and over about this party? They do not listen.
Right.
They do not listen to their constituents. The NDP do not listen to their constituents. The Liberals do not listen to their constituents. Why? Because that's what autocrats do. Autocrats are centralized at the top, and there's 3 or 4 people that probably run the show, and they could care less what their base are saying, and they will only be swayed if they think it's to their advantage. But you've lost the people. Sure, you've gained power, but you've lost the people. How long do you think the gravy train is going to last? That's what I would have told any company. Sure, you had a one-hit wonder. How long do you think you're going to ride this pony for?
Right.
You need to reinvent yourself. Your communication needs to change. You need to adapt. They have not adapted. And this is specifically because of what I've told you guys before in the background. They've created what we call the halo effect in marketing, where they've attached 2 brands that should have never been attached. The Liberal Party should have never been attached to the Trudeau brand. He could have been the prime minister, but you brought in Trudeau, in all of the campaigning, not Liberal Party, that it's become the Trudeau brand associated to the Liberal Party. And now, even if you try to disassociate, which is what they're trying to do, typically that takes about a year and a half, from my experience, to actually break the halo effect in some measurable way.
Well, and this is what happened in the New Brunswick election. In all of the media and the flyers and everything that they used, they did not mention the Liberal Party. They just mentioned the Premier's name, and I forget her name. I apologize for that. But it was just team and then her name. They didn't use the Liberal Party of Canada. They didn't use Liberal Party of New Brunswick, because they wanted to ensure that they were disassociating themselves from Justin Trudeau and the Federal Liberal Party. And that's what the fall of the BC Liberal Party saw as well. All the Liberal parties around Canada are having the same problem. Even Andrew Furey out in PEI.
Even here in Ontario,
Newfoundland, yeah.
Ontario, Doug Ford still has a lead in the polls. Like, how? And it's because the really only viable option, the Liberal Party, is associated with Justin Trudeau.
So,
And you know, just as an anecdote on this, which is I find something many people don't consider and maybe don't want to consider, is we often think of like the CPC winning or leading. We need to account for the fact that there is a coefficient in there that we don't want to really admit. It's not so much just that Pierre is winning, it's how bad the Liberals are hated.
yeah, that's a big component.
Nobody wants to think, it's not just that Pierre is beating him because of his persona or any of that stuff or the policies. It's he's so hated that like at this point, honestly, if you would have put Kermit the Frog as his opposition, people would probably vote for Kermit the Frog. And I'm not knocking Pierre here. I love Pierre. I'm just saying, it's that bad. When I think I heard you guys say that they might be relegated to third place. Like, is it possible?
It's possible. It's possible
that the NDP or the Bloc could be the official opposition. What happened to the Liberals? I wonder.
Right.
You know, you mean you would take the Bloc over the Liberals? Something has happened. You know, and.
Well, and speaking of transitions, I think we'll leave politics there. Let's transition into your transition. What is next for Elijah in his business ventures?
Well, I am working in the background, and for some people, I've never really shown people precisely what I do, and I could present a little bit of some of the work that I do, and from my side of things, there's been some changes that I've decided to make, and I'm operating under a different brand right now, and it's only going to be a brand that I'm going to reveal once I'm done. So right now, the Vesper Digital brand was my original company, and I was operating under Vesper Digital, and I was making a lot, to be honest with you, across North America and Europe. And what happened was, as soon as whatever happened, that happened to all of us, right? Which is what introduced us. I probably should have created another brand, but I was so insulted and aggravated, quite frankly, that on Twitter, I just began to post things under the business name, and that's where it took off. And so my Twitter handle, which many of my clients knew, unfortunately, I did lose in Canada, not in the States. In the States, for the most part, they don't really care what I think or say or do, because it's Canada. If I were attacking, let's say, the Democrats, they would probably drop me. But I lost just a number of really big accounts in Canada because of my views, and I don't care. I make up for it in other ways, but it comes with the territory. And I suppose once I did what I did and I'd lost those accounts, I stayed in the background, as you guys know, and I didn't try to, hey, woe is me. And I'm still not doing woe is me. I'm doing okay. And I'm happy, you know, to help not only you guys, but anyone else that I feel is going to be effective. It's not just because I get a lot of people that do ask me, that know what I do and they need help. And I turn a lot of people down just because I don't believe that it's synergistic between them and I. But this is the kind of stuff that I do. I've worked with bigger companies like Rolex. I've worked with, you know, a lot of the perfumery industry. I've done things for the U.S. military. I've done things for Canadian military, technology, components, NVIDIA. This is the kind of brands that I typically work with for concepting or strategizing with them. And in terms of design, I really like to be out of the box. The sad part about all this is that everything I do on X is so parody-like, with my supercuts and my, you know, GIFs and all this stuff, that it doesn't really do justice to what exactly it is that I do. But I said once, and you guys know this, once Justin steps down or the Liberals lose, that account, I was initially going to close it, but a lot of people have just asked me, look, don't close it, keep it open, just don't use it. Leave it open for us, so that, because there's a wealth of resources whether it be comedy or whether it be supercuts or whatever, that we want to be able to just find without looking for it online. And I said, okay. And what I'm going to do is the day I leave, I'm going to tell everyone goodbye. This is going to be my new brand for my business. It will have nothing political in it. And if you want to follow me, follow me. But until that day, I'm not going to reveal what my new brand is. And, some of the things that I've shared with you guys that you guys say to me is cool is like stuff like this, that a lot of companies come to me and they want to redefine like the look, the feel of everything. And I'm very proud of the work that I do. And so I'll just leave it there. That's the future for me. Once the liberals are gone, I'm already doing work, but I get back to actually promoting my work. Right now, I'm doing things like helping Northern Perspective and other brands put the message out there, get it so out there that they have to create a bill to take down people like you. That's how you know you're effective, right? That's how you know you're effective. And so I want to thank you again for having me on. And sharing my ideas and who I am. And I'm privileged to have worked with both of you. Thank you for taking my advice, and thank you for helping Canadians have a voice. And I hope and I pray that more people begin to tune in and understand that not everything's about money. You really should help each other. We're in a state now where it cannot be about you earning anything. It has to be a team effort, and we all need to kind of like grab hands and just work. And unfortunately, the landscape right now is that there are some really, really good people doing some really, really good work, but there are people that look like they're doing good work, but what they're really doing is just wanting to grift. They could care less at this point. And I want to work with other people that I know have Canada's best interest, even if it comes at personal cost. It costs me. Like, it's not that it costs me with you. It costs me losing clients. It costs me losing friendships. It costs me losing things to do the things that I do. I wonder the people that I work with, if they're ready to lose, right? I mean, you've had Tamara Lynch on. I've met her also. We were together once. She lost a lot. Chris Barber lost a lot. People that are, to me, heroes are people that are willing to lose. And I'll leave it there. People that are heroes to me are people that are not ready to just gain, but are willing to lose.
Well, hopefully very soon we will have an election and we can begin to heal as a country, bring everybody together again, live in the Canada that we knew and loved, and get back to, a country that we can all be proud of again. So, ladies and gentlemen, the man behind the brand and the man with the plan, Elijah, thank you very much for all of your help, and thank you very much for coming on and discussing that with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. What a pleasure. Have yourselves a great day.